Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CoStar News Hotels podcast. I am news editor Sean McCracken, here with Anna Abelson, who is an adjunct instructor at the Jonathan M. Tisch Center of Hospitality at the NYU School of Professional Studies. Anna, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Sean.
And hopefully I didn't mess up any of the words in the very long title of your employer, but the
No.
reason
Mhm.
the reason we're chatting today is obviously you guys put together, along with the Family Travel Association, a survey on family travel in the U.S. And I believe this is the 10th year running that you guys have done this. So I kind of wanted to touch base to see what the trends are with family travel, and what people should be aware of in that space. So let's start right there. In this 2025 edition of the survey, what are the highlights that you're seeing?
Sure. And as you mentioned, the U.S. Family Travel Survey is the result of a decade-long partnership between the Family Travel Association and NYU SPS Jonathan Tisch Center of Hospitality. And we have been doing it for 10 years. We started in 2015, and the goal was to do a study and to do a deep dive on the U.S. family travel market, and also to see what we can identify in terms of consumer behavior, attitudes, and intent to travel. So for the 2025 edition, I had the privilege of serving in the leadership role alongside Peter Bob, the FTA research advisor, and we specifically surveyed, analyzed, and reporting and updated data. So this year we had the chance to survey around 1,600 respondents, and we had two tracks. As in the past, we looked into the pool of parents, and we had over 700 parents that responded to our survey, and over 800 grandparents. So it was an extensive undertaking that took us about 4 to 5 months, and we did it in partnership this year, in particular with Good Housekeeping, who provided us access to the database. So in terms of some of the top line findings, we looked again into the intent to travel, and I'm going to highlight some of the numbers later, but the numbers are really strong. We compare them to the previous years. Then again, we looked into multi-generational travel and skip generational. Multi-generational is obviously families and the extended family, or it might be grandparents. Skip generational typically travel that involves grandparents and children without parents. So we looked into what's happening there, how much has been spent, what is travel intent, and where they stay, and also what kind of activities they engaged in. Then we also looked into the preferences of where families prefer to travel internationally, domestically, what kind of activities they're looking into. And some of the highlights from this particular year, we included new segments on so-called kidfluence, where we see, the industry definitely tells us that the role of children is becoming more prominent, and we identified kids as co-pilots in creating travel itineraries for family travel. So we had a special segment just to kind of probe, and we had questions for grandparents and for parents about that, and also looked into any other challenges. In affordability came up. Then also for each and every survey, we look into a grade that family travel or families give for industry, and how well they support them. We're talking about supplies, it might be airline accommodations, etc. And then we also included one new segment, traveling on needs for families with kids with special needs, and if the industry actually is ready to support this growing, segment, and what families are expecting when they travel internationally and domestically.
So I guess let's start with what, at least on the surface level, reads as good news to me. I mean, it was mentioned that 92% of the parents that you guys talk to say they're likely to travel with their children, which seems to be a high water mark in the last few years. 81% of families say they're either going to increase or maintain the level of domestic travel spending. Like that seems like good news for the industry at a point where demand is maybe not as strong as some people would like it to be.
Right, indeed. This is actually a pretty good data point, and we again compared that with previous year. It was to 2023. It's about 20% increase in 2023. Intent to travel with children was about 81%. In 2025, it is 92, which is a good amount. But then we also asked our audience about the trip types. What would be the top five? Beach vacations, 62% identified that would be their top priority. VFR, visiting family and friends, 61%. Theme parks or water parks, 45%, as well as national and state parks and city vacations. So the numbers, again, it just shows that the intent is there and people are planning to travel. However, our survey also identify the issue with rising costs, and
Yeah.
affordability was mentioned as one of the challenges or barriers. And with that said, families are trying to be more creative. So what they're trying to do, they're trying to maybe identify airlines that are not charging extra fees for, seats together, or maybe luggage, or maybe looking for special discounts to go to any amusement parks, etc. Again, just being trying to be creative, or cooking maybe in the hotel versus going out. Yes, so another interesting data point is spending forecast. So how much are they planning to spend and how much they actually spend this year on average? It's about $8,000 on family travel, which again is an increase from previous years, which
Hmm.
is a very good indication.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that is slightly surprising given the macro environment. But yeah, the data points you guys had on affordability, obviously 73% of parents said that it's the biggest obstacle, and then it seems like the survey kind of bears out that even though people are still traveling, they're still spending. They're trying to kind of cut at the margins, right?
Right, exactly. Again, in terms of affordability, to your point, you mentioned that 73% mentioned that affordability is a top worry, but then 40% say that they will choose more affordable accommodations when comparing in the past, or 46% mentioned that they will limit the number of ticketed attractions visited. Again, families are trying to be creative because family travel is not only the experience of traveling somewhere and immersing yourself in a different culture, in different place, but also, it's bonding time, social
Hmm.
emotional aspect, which is very important.
Yeah, and I think that obviously you guys reflect this in the survey in various ways, but it's kind of reflective of that fact that even when consumer spending tightens or consumers' wallets are getting a little lighter in general, it seems like people see the kind of cultural, developmental benefits of traveling with their families, traveling with their children. Kind of, it's more ingrained that this is something that we have to do as part of their upbringing, as opposed to a luxury.
Indeed, again, we also mentioned that, in general, we always say that travel is the only investment or expense that keep on, giving. So that gives you back in so many more forms. It is transformative, it is bonding with your family, it is expanding your horizons. And then we also had the section in our survey where we asked specific questions of how travel has helped children see the world from a different perspective. And we have very high response, 71%. And then also how travel engages or encourages engaging in different cultures and broadening perspective. So the value of family travel is very strong, and 85% mentioned that travel brings the family closer together.
Hmm. And, it's interesting to me because I did obviously work in kind of trends season, and Hilton just, last month released their kind of projected trends for 2026. And that included a whole section about highlighting family travel, multi-generational travel. But they kind of saw the trend too in getting children more involved in the planning process, and kind of putting them in the driver's seat a bit more. You guys observed that definitely. So let's talk about that a little bit. What you guys are describing is the kidfluence of travel.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's definitely something that the industry has been looking closely at, and it is a trend that emerged, I believe, within a couple of years. And this year, we decided to really do a deep dive and see what is it all about. And we asked very specific questions about why families want to have children as co-pilots, at what point they engage them in travel planning, and where do they get inspiration from. And again, we see that children are active voices in family travel planning. 61% of parents mention that they involve children in travel planning, and it impacts them positively. And some of them, 67%, mentioned that children, at least they somehow involved in travel planning, and that would be, for example, selecting specific activities or excursions, or choosing restaurant or dining experiences. Then we also asked, what about an overall decision on where to go, the destination? And that's not a high number just yet. But then again, if our children feel that, if kids feel that they are contributing and being an active participant in that travel planning, and especially if they see the outcome when the travel complete, and then they see the positive engagement and really kind of giving them autonomy, which is really, really important. So what children actually express the most interest in? Well, 75% definitely mentioned relaxation and pool. Beach vacation is at the top, and then theme parks and amusement parks, 67%, as well as outdoor adventures.
Hmm. And I mean, obviously, as a parent myself, if I think about, to put this into context, if I'm spending $8,000 on trips on average, I don't think there'd be anything more deflating to me than a kid who's kind of uninterested or just not engaged in what we're trying to do. So it makes total sense to, bring them into the process and say, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Because then your chances of wasting your money seem to go down significantly.
And yes, exactly. And then, yes, I can also use my example. I guess I also have young kids, and my older daughter, she's turning 11, and instead of having a birthday party next January, she asked to go on a literary tourism, on a literary trip to go to UK, because she's right now doing Shakespeare studies, and she really wants to see the birthplace of Shakespeare, but also to see Dickens museum, and then really kind of immerse from perspective of, okay, so I read about it and I really want to see where it all was all taking place. And to that point, we also, in our survey, we asked where kids are getting the inspiration from, and they mentioned that 54% they get it from friends or classmates, 53 from social media, and 52 from TV shows and movies. And interestingly enough, we looked at what are the top 5 destinations, international destinations for this year, and Japan was one of them for the first time. So again, all the influences of shows and the movies, that definitely makes sense.
Oh, for sure. The coincidence of that is that my 9-year-old son has asked me if we could take a family trip to Japan probably half a dozen times by now.
You see it? We see it in real life, exactly.
I also want to make a note that you're apparently a more cultured parent than I, because the last trip that my son was really pushing for is he wanted to go to Universal because he loved Super Mario. And I think that's a little less classy than wanting to go trace the history of Shakespeare.
But Universal was so much fun. We did that. It's just I want to go back. I was so impressed. So
Oh yeah, it was a blast, but it's a little less cultured, I will admit. So beyond the costs, you guys kind of dove into pain points for traveling families, and I think that's probably an interesting topic for the hoteliers listening to this. So, what did you guys kind of uncover on what the more difficult aspects of family travel are?
from that perspective, again, we asked grandparents and parents separately of what they can identify as, improvement for the industry. And as mentioned, we ask our audience every year of what the industry can do better. Or first, we ask them to provide the grade. So, what would be your industry evaluation? We got B plus, and it means that the industry is doing well, but we definitely have some way for improvement, to some areas for improvement. And some of the family travel wish lists would be, again, being seated together on flights at no extra cost. Also, more family rooms or connected rooms in hotels that now we obviously have more offerings, or our hospitality providers, they offer more of these opportunities, but it still comes up, and we saw it in this year as well. And more low cost options and more discounts, better quality and level of service, and also very important, going back to affordability, more transparent pricing without hidden costs and hidden fees and resort fees and all of that. That again, as a traveling family myself, travel a family of four, it can add up, and it's always we would really appreciate to see all the costs up front. So then, in order to budget better and making sure what we can afford and what we can also splurge on.
Hmm. And a little more specifically, too, you guys did a little deeper dive on family travel when the families have children with special needs, and kind of identified some headwinds in that regard. Can you let me know what you guys saw there?
Yes, absolutely. And so we had I guess at the beginning of our survey, as we were asking questions and trying to see, identify the profile of our respondents, we also asked questions about families that have any kids with special needs. And surprisingly, and that was one of the surprising, I guess, takeaways, we had over 13% of our respondents that indicated that they do have kids with special needs. So then we had a special section just for them and what exactly they're looking for from the industry. And first of all, what grade they would give to industry, and does it meet the needs of families with children who have special needs. And the grade was not really satisfactory. It was C minus. And as we asked them probing questions, what can be done better for inclusive tourism, and some of the takeaways were they indicated that they should consider better staff training, kind of understanding the needs of divergent kids, or maybe some sensory situations. So if we're talking about all inclusive, and if we're talking about kids club, having staff that actually is trained to deal with kids that might require, different redirection or maybe different attention. And then also, again, more sensory friendly options, and also ensuring accessible facilities that is still kind of being integrated, but not all of them have it just yet. It
Yeah.
also applies to cultural attractions as well.
Hmm. For sure. So, I do want to mention, like, one of the highlights of this year too is that it seems to be the idea of multi-generational travel, which you guys kind of identify as three or more generations, that seems to be on the rise as well.
Right. Yes. So multi-generational travel has been on the rise, and it has been growing, and it's something that we have been looking throughout, the 10 year, I guess, experience of working on or conducting this survey. And we also asked multi-generational travelers how much they spend, where would they prefer to stay, who actually pays for multi-generational. So again, some of the highlights might be um, um, grandparents are strong drivers of family travel. And for multi-generational trips, 71% have taken this type of trip in the past 3 years, and 44% are planning to do it in the next three years. So skip generational is not as popular, but it's becoming more. And some of, I guess, the reasons we asked why it is important for you to engage in skip generational trips, grandparents mentioned that they didn't have a chance to spend or to travel as much when they were raising their kids. Now they're kind of giving back, and they're, the bonding time and really exposing or expanding the world and showing it to their grandkids is very rewarding experience for them. So with that said, again, we looked into what might be the trip characteristics between multi-generational and skip generational. So multi-generational, as mentioned, is more common. Skip generational might be, day trips, so weekend getaways. And then for multi-generational, it might be often beach vacation. And the skip generational might be immersing in the cultural attractions. And however, for skip generational, international trips are not as common. And the average spend for them is about 2,000 versus 5,000 for multi-generational.
I will say that since my father retired a few years ago, him traveling is probably the top thing on his to-do list. And his new thing in the last couple of years is constantly asking if he can take my son for a week or so in the summer to do some sort of trip. So the skip generational thing is real in my family, even if it is not quite as prevalent overall.
That's amazing. Good for you and good for your son. That's wonderful. Mm-hmm.
So I guess before we wrap this up, obviously you did a lot of research on this. There's a lot of data points, more than we could possibly get into in this conversation. But I'm wondering from your perspective, what you think hoteliers, what the hotel industry in general should take away from all this information. Like, what would you like to see more of from hotels to kind of embrace family travel?
Well, I guess again, to your point, we do have an extensive research and a lot of data points, and we wanted to make sure that it is actionable. And for our partners, it was done in partnership with Family Travel Association. We have our suppliers who do a deep dive and then do follow-up questions and whatnot. But the idea is to listen to what our parents and grandparents are sharing and like what they're expecting. Besides that, I also wanted to mention that this year we also included technology and social media in travel planning, and we also asked questions from parents and the grandparents of what exactly you're using, how do you plan, and what inspires you, and different takeaways, I would say. For example, for parents, they prefer to use search engines. For grandparents, they prefer to go to direct merchant websites. So that's actually something I would say important to know for hotels. And then rating and review sites important as well. And in terms of like how do they trust social media and what social media they trust? So for grandparents and parents, TripAdvisor at the top, but for grandparents, Facebook is number two, and for parents, Instagram. YouTube for grandparents on the third place, and for parents, it is Facebook. And also we wanted to see what's happening with Gen AI and integration in travel planning and how they're using it and do they trust it. And not surprisingly, but it was kind of good to validate our, I guess, assumption. Parents use Gen AI, 27% of them using it at this stage. And in terms of grandparents, only 11%. So the potential is there. I'm sure once we conduct the survey next year, we are going to see a different picture because it is, still, some novelty and grandparents and parents are not sure how to integrate it, how to use it, how to trust it with,
Yeah.
so what tool, Gen AI tool they use and then we do have, some anecdotal experiences when something was recommended, but then the opening hours of that particular museum or cultural institution was, not accurate.
Yeah.
So the trust is not yet there just yet.
Yeah, and for sure. I mean, I think the example you gave might be a bit more on the benign end, especially since I think it was the BBC recently had a big report on people who rely solely on Gen AI for travel planning and how it was sending people to, cultural landmarks that don't exist in remote Peru and stuff like that. And doing that with family in tow kind of feels like a nightmare to me, but I'm
Yes.
sure it'll get better over time.
And it would be nice to see again. We are going to survey our audience next year, and then we'll see what's the adoption rate. So, who is using what, how they're using it, how much they trust it. And then we also looked at kind of just to wrap up what can be the takeaway for travel advisors. And we saw that. We asked how many people are actually using, what's the percentage of parents that is using travel advisors. And we saw that even though 19% of parents use it in 2025, it is a decrease from previous year. Grandparents, similar to grandparents. But interestingly enough, we had this question about how many use it, so about 19%, but if would you use it in the future, 60% said that yes, they would use a travel advisor. So there is this gap or disconnect, like maybe they don't know how to identify the travel advisor who would be helpful with their planning, etc. So yes, there are different takeaways, and again, we hope that this presents interesting findings and food for thought and some additional opportunities for the industry, for hotels, for hospitality, for suppliers, for DMCs, and to see how everything is shaping family travel. And it was interesting to see, and we track it every year, every other year, and then see what's the future, where we're going to be in 3 to 5 years with family travel.
And as I mentioned, obviously, so much more information than we could cover in the time allotted here. And we will point both listeners and readers in the direction of the full survey results. But Anna, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sean.
Hi, I'm Davon Reed.
I'm Omari Head.
And I'm Chris Henry.
We're the hosts of the Next Gen in Lodging podcast. It's a monthly show in which we interview a new generation of hoteliers to get their insights into a variety of disciplines and topics, from finance to food and beverage and hotel operations. Listen to us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode of the CoStar News Hotels podcast was recorded on November 6, 2025, and edited by me, Sean McCracken. Look for more of our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you listen, and visit costar.com/hotel news for daily coverage of the global hotel industry.